Hi everyone, welcome back to Learning English Pro. You are very welcome to this exciting English vocabulary lesson on sexuality. This promises to be a fun and interesting lesson where we will explore some of the many sexuality types that are found throughout human culture. I am also publishing an accompanying video on gender types, which you should also watch to help you have a broader perspective on the subject matter of identity and associated vocabulary. When I've published that video, I will include it in the description below. Don't forget to also check out the word list, which will cover all the vocabulary in today's video. Sexuality is part of identity, but what is identity? Identity is the fact of being who or what a person is. It is how you describe who you are. It tells people what is distinct or individual about you. There are lots of ways we can describe ourselves, and there are lots of different types of perspectives one may take when it comes to identity. As I mentioned earlier, in this video we will take a look at sexuality as an identity. But what is sexuality? Sexuality is the way people experience and express themselves sexually. Your sexuality describes the type of people you are attracted to, both sexually and romantically. We also have a synonym for sexuality, which is orientation. Repeat after me. Orientation. The most well-known and referenced sexualities in human culture are straight, gay, lesbian, and bisexual. Let's take a look at these in closer detail. Straight is also known as heterosexual or hetero for short. Straight refers to a sexuality where a person is sexually and romantically attracted to people of the opposite sex. Our next sexuality type is gay, which is also known as homosexual. And this describes a person who is sexually and romantically attracted to members of their own sex. Gay is usually used to describe homosexual men. Our next term is lesbian, and this describes a woman who is sexually and romantically attracted to other women. And our next term is bisexual, which can also be shortened to bi. Bisexual or bi describes a person who is sexually and romantically attracted to men, women, and perhaps other genders. Let's move on to other lesser known sexualities, like bicurious. This sexual identity refers to someone who is curious or questioning their sexuality and romantic feelings for members of two or more genders. Repeat after me. Bicurious. Let's move on. Next up we have asexual. Repeat after me. Asexual. This type of identity describes someone who does not experience sexual attraction to others of any gender. Some people with this identity may experience romantic attraction to others of one or more genders. There is also an asexual spectrum, which includes graysexual, aromantic, grey romantic, and demiromantic, and many more sexual identity types. I will probably do a video on the asexual spectrum in the future. Up next we have AUTOSEXUAL. Repeat after me. AUTOSEXUAL. This sexuality describes a person who experiences sexual attraction to themselves. We also have autoromantic. Autoromantic. This sexuality describes a person who experiences romantic attraction to themselves. Those who identify as autoromantic often report experiencing the relationship they have with themselves as romantic. Our next term is closeted. Repeat after me. Closeted. Those who are closeted describe people in the LGBTQIA+ community who have chosen to not disclose publicly or openly their sexuality or aspects of sexuality, such as behaviour or attraction. The same can be said of gender identities or expressions. Closeted is often understood as the opposite of out. It refers to the figurative, hidden or private place a LGBTQIA+ person comes from in the journey of making decisions about discussing gender and sexuality openly. Let's take a look at the acronym LGBTQIA+. You may have often seen it as LGBT+, which is a shortened version. But what does it mean? Let's break down this acronym to see which words are represented. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, plus. As you can see, we've already covered a lot of these terms. Transgender and intersex are terms which identify gender identities, and they will be covered in the accompanying video, which I have linked in the description below. But let's take a look at the other two terms, queer and plus, and what they mean. First up, we have queer, which is an umbrella term that is used to describe those who are not heterosexual. While it is generally used to discuss sexuality, it is open to be used in reference to gender identity as well. But when it comes to using this word, you should be careful, as it has negative associations and is best avoided in some contexts. Next up, let's take a look at the term plus. The plus aims to include those whose identity is that which is not listed in the acronym, but is still a member of the community through their sexual or gender identity. So let's move on and take a look at some of these sexualities not covered in the acronym. Up first, we have demisexual. Repeat after me, demisexual. Demisexual is on the asexual spectrum. This sexual identity describes an individual who experiences sexual attraction only under specific circumstances, such as after building a romantic or emotional relationship with a person. Our next term is fluid. Fluid. This identity type is used to describe individuals who experience shifts in their sexuality, sexual attraction, or sexual behaviour in different situations or throughout the course of their lifetime. You may hear someone describe their sexuality as fluid. This term refers to the fact that sexuality, sexual attraction, and sexual behaviour can change over time and be dependent on the situation. Let's move on to our next term. Libidoist asexual. Libidoist asexual. This term is used to describe an asexual person who experiences sexual feelings that are satisfied through self-pleasure. We also have the term non-libidoist asexual. Non-libidoist asexual. And this term describes someone who doesn't experience any sexual feelings or have an active sex drive. Our next term is pansexual, also known as pan for short. This is a term that describes individuals who can experience sexual, romantic, or emotional attraction to any person, regardless of that person's gender, sex, or sexuality. We also have the term omnisexual. Repeat after me, omnisexual. Omnisexual is similar to pansexual and can be used to describe individuals whose sexuality isn't limited to people of a particular gender, sex, or sexual orientation. Our next term is pomosexual. Pomosexual. This is a term, not necessarily an identity, which is used to refer to a person who rejects sexuality labels or doesn't identify with any of them. Coming up next, we have sapiosexual. Sapiosexual. This is a sexuality that describes someone whose attraction to another is based on intelligence rather than sex and gender. Our next term is SKOLIOSEXUAL. Repeat after me. SKOLIOSEXUAL. This is quite a new term and is a sexual orientation that describes those who are sexually attracted to people with non-cisgender identities, such as people who are non-binary, genderqueer, or trans. Our next term is SPECTRASEXUAL. SPECTRASEXUAL. This type of sexuality describes someone who is sexually or romantically attracted to multiple or varied sexes, genders, and gender identities, but not necessarily all or any. And that brings us to the end of this English lesson on sexuality. Don't forget to check out the word list in the description below. I wasn't able to cover every sexuality in this video. I've tried to include as many identities in this video as I can, and I will be doing lots more videos on sexuality and identity in the future. Coming up on screen are some video suggestions just for you. The links for my social media are in the description below, and you can subscribe to my channel right here to stay updated on all my latest videos. That just leaves me to say I hope you have a fantastic day, and remember, keep learning English like a pro.